are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a work session Monday, September 27th, 5:15 p.m. This will be a hybrid meeting. And this discussion topic tonight is the first review of the City of Seldovia Land Use Management Plan. We'll go ahead and open it up to staff to go ahead and give us their presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to direct council's attention to page 3 in your packet, which is a memo overview of what you have before you, the draft land use management plan. I first and foremost want to thank our city clerk and special projects and communications coordinator, Heidi Gagel, for compiling it, because in no way would this be ready for this meeting had it not been for her dedication and hard work ethic. And I'm going to pass the mic over to her so she can walk council through the draft. But I just wanted to emphasize a few things. So first and foremost, this is the first draft. So take it with a grain of salt, so to speak. Secondly, the intent of the work session is you're going to look over the format that we've put together for the land use management plan, and perhaps there's other things that you would like to see. So aside from each parcel putting the assessed value, eventually getting the acquisition history, current uses of the parcel, and future considerations, maybe there's other pieces of information that council would find beneficial to have included on each parcel. So keep that in mind, that we're seeking your feedback. And then the hope is that by the end of tonight's work session, the mayor will have worked with the council to appoint 2 council members to work with staff in further reviewing the draft land use management plan. So then that way, when we bring it back before the council and then go out to the public for public comment, we have worked most effectively with council as well as staff to put together a better draft final product. So that's the intent for tonight, is to get further feedback from council, as well as 2 council champions to work on this with staff. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our city clerk so she can walk you through the draft land use management plan.
Thank you. So through the mayor, there is a packet. Everybody hopefully has access to that. And there is a memo from the city manager it's page 3 of the packet. I didn't number the first pages because the land use management itself is numbered, and it would have gotten confusing. But it does mention in the memo, and I would really like to emphasize that we still, and you'll see the note on the following page, the first page of the draft, we still need to research all the acquisition history and get the deeds together and make sure there aren't any restrictions or further restrictions. We also are going to work on pulling public use easements and incorporating them into this draft, as well as leases. The lots that are leased now do mention that they are leased, but we'll have just a chapter on each of those sections, hopefully in the future, of leases and easements, as well as each parcel will contain any restrictions or acquisition history that we can gather. At this time, the municipality has 74 properties. If you turn to page 3, it's labeled. It's actually page 7 if you're using it online. You'll see that they are listed out by district. So residential, there's 4, waterfront commercial residential 2, commercial district 11, industrial 20. The industrial district by far has the most properties. Tidelands 13, public city 17, and unzoned 7. And there's a little overview of each district below that I hope is useful, just to give an idea of what's in each district. We started compiling a list of overall future considerations, but there's only 4 things on there. Well, the 4th being to be continued. So that would be great. That's just some of the things that were provided by staff, but also we would love to have council inclusion. There's going to be some more mapping information included, like I said, as well as the leases, which includes the harbor kiosks. But then if you'll turn to page 8 of the paper packet, and that's going to be, let me just catch up to make sure we're all on the same page, literally. 12 of the digital packet. We're gonna hopefully, and you guys please give us any suggestions that makes it more user friendly, but as of now, it starts with each district and of the code for the district, permitted uses, conditional uses, and not permitted. And then each parcel for that district follows. Where you'll see, like, for instance, on page 10 is in yellow. That means that's information that I received from staff, but it hasn't been verified. So there are some, obviously some sections in here that still need work. But the format's the same throughout. It's designated use. For instance, page 9, the first one is this lot that's up by the school. So right now it's being used as storage. I need the acquisition history on it. Has the legal description. If there's an address, the zoning, the area, the assessed value, any improvements in infrastructure. And this is as the borough lists them. So it says it's got a gravel driveway. And future considerations, just things that have been talked about in office or through with council in the past. I know a while ago in a previous administration, it was mentioned, hey, maybe this could be a spot to have an emergency shelter. But it is still out of the tsunami, or it is still considered in the tsunami inundation zone. It just would be a much lower wave for worst case scenario. And that's really what I have. We can go through each page if everybody wants, but that's the general overview of each property. And I think it'd be great if we could have a few council members working together on this with me and other staff, and we can really just dive deep into that acquisition history and future considerations for each property. And that would be help take us a long ways. Last thing to note, there are a few, there are a few pages, like page 17, which is actually it's a ways in there. Page 21 of the digital packet, you'll see lots that are together, and we can break those out further if we need to, but this takes place a few places in code just because if they're similar stories, similar value, similar area, like the boatyard lots are all together. Sometimes it seemed like it was advantageous instead of having a page for each one, but I can certainly separate those out as council wishes. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Yeah, I went through this in first glance, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a great start for what we talked about, just kind of getting all this together. Yeah, I was a little surprised at some of these pieces because there's so much vacant land around you. I'd never know who owns what around the town. So I think this will be a good document for not only council, but for the entire community to get an idea of just what lands the city has. And then I think the key will be as we get all the information to go through and then figure out, what the disposition should be, if any changes, or any recommendations. So, which is obviously what we've talked about for future revenue options going forward. So go ahead and open it up to council comments. Anyone from council want to care to comment?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Heidi, I assume all these assessments are just the county tax assessors estimate of what.
Yeah, correct. These come from Kenai Peninsula Borough.
Okay, so we can expect the actual assessed value of these pieces to be considerably higher than what the assessor is saying here. Is that a correct assumption?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not in real estate, so I don't think I can answer that, but it looks like our city manager may be able to address that.
Through the mayor, council member Nathan, for some parcels, yes, for some parcels, no, surprisingly sometimes. So it would be a best management practice for the city if there was any pieces of our real estate in which the city wanted to dispose of, that we appraise them to fair market value. And then that way you'd get the most up-to-date, accurate price for that piece of property.
Well, it's fairly expensive to get that assessment. And it's, anyway, that doesn't make any difference. I was just curious as to whether it was the assessment. Also, I see a bunch of possible uses for almost all the bare land as marijuana cultivation. Do we really want to encourage that within the city?
I believe, Mr. Nathan, that you're speaking to the conditional uses, permitted uses, and not permitted. So that's per our land use table. However, there are more restrictive conditions on marijuana cultivation facilities. There's an actual separate code. So each individual parcel would have to be looked at on its own for whether it meets those, like it's got to be 500 yards from the school. There's different parameters that it has to fall under. That's just an overall general for that district. It's allowed or not allowed.
Okay.
Thank you, George. Any other additional follow-up questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Okay, Vivian.
Yep, good document that we put together, Heidi. Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody has had a chance. I'm just going through some of this, but had a chance to go through and actually identify where these pieces of property are. And so I would assume from tonight, or what we need to do is determine what lots are off limits, because it's overwhelming looking at all properties, and it's great that we have them all in front of us, to eliminate the properties that aren't even in consideration of disposing of or doing, or because they already have a use that is viable to the city. But this is a great document.
I believe that the request for tonight was to have 2 council members step up and work with city staff on delving a little deeper and in that conversation.
And I'm wondering if we want to wait till a new election at that time, but I know you're bringing on new people and whether or not they want to take on something like that, plus the position. Just a consideration. If there's anybody who maybe voted in that's willing and able, I don't know if we want to put that off or if we want to do it tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, I think my personal preference would be to wait after the election, since we're so close to the election now. I think that would probably be the fair thing to do. Anyone else with comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, Heidi, thank you for putting this together. It's really great to see it, but I'm kind of with Vivian. I think I'm gonna go, and if anybody else wants to, that'd be great. I think I'm gonna spend some time in the next few weeks and go try to locate these properties so I can actually physically see, where they are. It's great though. You did a fabulous job on putting all this together. I know it's time consuming, but I really appreciate you doing that. So, and I kind of agree. I think maybe we could wait until we get some new council folks. In my thought. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Yeah, and I think from the way I see this plan being developed, I mean, I know we all want to take, look at the any opportunities for these parcels, but I agree. I think we knew this was not going to be a simple process because of the complications of the way a lot of this land may have been deeded or it was acquired. So there could be, use restriction covenants, et cetera, that were all deeded with the original piece of property that I think as part of developing this plan, those are what are really going to be the killer before anybody gets too excited on saying, oh yeah, that's a good looking piece of land. We start going down a path only to find out, oh yeah, we can't use it for that, or its uses were intended for this. So not that it couldn't be changed, but I think it's worth, getting definitely going through the process here and getting to a point where we're fairly confident that there's not going to be any big showstoppers on any particular piece of property. Any other additional questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Bobby, did you have more? Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree. I realize this is not going to be an easy task. I think we have to take a look at, start at A and go all the way down to Z, because it's going to be a long drawn out process. I agree with Vivian. I think we ought to, take a look at those pieces of property that are already being used for something and kind of see if we can eliminate those. That's going to bring it down to, bring it down a little bit. Yeah, and we have to see if there are any restrictions or, this or that. And it's not going to be an easy task, that's for sure, or a quick task. So, thanks. That's all I've got.
Yeah, the good thing is this is like developing a roadmap, right? I mean, we develop the map, we show all the pitfalls on there, and then we use it as just like any other document. We use it as a tool to be able to move forward and have some sort of intelligent debate, because we might not all agree on what we want to see used for that land. So obviously that's going to be up to council to come up with with a plan and final recommendations for disposition after we know what we can use each piece for. So all right, any other questions, comments from council?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, if I can ask a question, maybe we could go over it. That is.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivi.
Yeah, thank you. The overview tidelands, could you explain to me, it's page 34 on the document and then on into 35 following. Maybe we could talk about, these are basically land that the city owns that are in their tide, that are below mean high water tide, or maybe somebody could explain, like on page 35, what I'm looking at.
Yes, correct. So this is the tidelands. So tidelands is 17.2, I believe, is mean high tide water. So these are the parcels below it. The city, the slough and the harbor, not all of the slough, but a lot of the slough, the city already has tidelands for. And then of course, inside the small boat harbor, this is outside of the harbor, that these parcels are listed through the Kenai Peninsula Borough as property of the city of Seldovia. And it's those parcels just surrounding the city dock. And then there's a little tiny one up by Watch Point Island as well, that I just included with Watch Point Island. So the overview chapter is a little bit different for them because they are not included in Title 18. There is a small tideland section in there, but there's a whole chapter, a whole Title 14 that specifies tidelands.
And what can be done with them?
Yeah.
What can be done with them? Okay.
And so maybe that's one that the city or the council automatically eliminates, as we're not worried about them. They don't, they have
Right.
a small assessed value. They're great access points for
Right.
the city,
So they might be one of the ones that should put on a list that we're not going to look at for
Yeah.
releasing. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor?
Vivian. Yeah, and I agree. There probably is going to be some low-hanging fruit on these that we can, that's obvious to everyone that we can pick off the list. Did someone else have a question there?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, George.
I like the idea of waiting till after the election to select folks for this. We don't know what we're going to get to start with. And maybe there's someone with a particular talent for this kind of stuff or not. Anyway, I think it would be good to wait till after the election. Secondly, I think we should start looking into the idea of financing this stuff. We could add just about, I've been looking at amortization tables and such. We could add just about 50% to the retail cost of a piece of property by financing it over just 20 years. And it shouldn't cost us next to nothing to do this. We already own the property, so it's not like we got to buy it and then enter into some other kind of deal. So I'm sure there's going to be some hoops we'll have to jump through, but I'd like to know what they are and if it's feasible to do that. It seems like a significant amount of money. At least it's worth talking about.
Yeah, and I think that makes good sense when we get into the disposition phase of this. I think that should certainly be one of the options for consideration. All right, any other questions, comments before we go to the public?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, I sure like the idea of looking into the deeds and how they were obtained. We did run into that issue when we were talking about revamping the RV park, or it was suggested to have another business out there, and it would have reverted back to the estate if we'd have done anything like that. So we have to be cautious at that. And through reading the ordinances, I am aware that if landowners own up to it, it doesn't necessarily have to go out to bid. It can be sold to the city manager. So there's lots of little caveats and stuff that we need to look at. How is the land obtained? I know there's one piece that's was obtained for $1 by a generous landowner. So I'm wondering how that's all going to play into what happens with these parcels. Thanks.
Thank you, Pearlie. Anyone else?
I have a question for consideration, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
In thinking about the different things that need to be taken into consideration if we do relinquish lots, I was wondering if it's legal to consider one of our caveats being that we don't sell to a non-taxable entity, because as it's been brought up in previous meetings, we only have so much land that this is in the city limits, and already so much of it is allotted to non-taxable entities of various sorts. And I don't know if that's a legal thing that we can do, but maybe it's something that we could consider putting in as one of our caveats. I mean, we want to add to our tax base, not give away to, anyways, that's just something I was wondering about.
Yeah, thank you, Harmony. Yeah, that's come up. I've had that discussion. I think I've discussed that with George too at one point about, and the city manager about some options for, when we get down to it on the actual disposal or disposition of these lands, on how, we have to make sure that it's beneficial for the city, not vacant, like I've said, and most of us understand, vacant land doesn't do anybody any good, and especially if there's no taxes being paid on it. So what we're looking for here, I hope, at least I am, is looking for improvements. I'm looking for, if we get rid of something, I want to see some improvements on it that's going to increase the tax base and then do something valuable for the city. So whether it be single family homes, more business opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I think that's the part of this that where we'll get into, some good debate when the time comes on what we, we're going to have to develop that part of the disposition plan on what we're hoping to acquire, and then use this vehicle or this tool as our roadmap to do that. So, all right, we've only got a few minutes left here, 15 minutes or so before we've got another meeting behind this. So, any other final comments or questions for this first go around before we go to the public? Okay. Heidi, is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on the draft land management use plan?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that'll bring it back to council. That gives us a few extra minutes to discuss. If anyone else has any additional or closing comments on the draft before us.
Mayor, if I may.
Yep, you bet. Go ahead, Rachel.
So the Seldovia Planning Commission has been reviewing the 2014 comprehensive plan, and they were supposed to have their last meeting and review the last section of the plan in September, but unfortunately they didn't have quorum, so the meeting got canceled. But I'm hoping that can happen for October or November, because then they're going to present to the council considerations in your comprehensive plan that you could factor into the development of this land use management plan. So for example, I've heard council say there's interest in land disposals as a way to help the city. But you could also think of holding on to land and using it to leverage resources. So in the comprehensive plan, it talks about how to encourage affordable housing. And so land is one very significant tool the city has where you can give land at less than fair market value, or hold the land in the city's name, but then offer it in a partnership with the developer where then they come in and construct the improvements. So the city maintains site control, but then the developer is, putting the improvements in, and it meets the intent and the best interests of the community and the city. So those types of options will be unique to every parcel. And so there's so much when it comes to land management, municipal land management, that we can dive into. And so we'll wait until after the election when we have two more people possibly on the team, or at least one new person on the team to have these discussions with. And then I don't think it's an unrealistic goal to think that council could be adopting its land use management plan this early spring. And then you can use your finalized land use management plan, or as the city clerk mentioned, LUMP, which is an unfortunate acronym. You could use the LUMP to base future decisions on, such as leveraging resources, tax-based incentive structures, public-private partnerships, land sales, you name it, financing. You'll have a final plan in which you can start dreaming off of. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, and I think that makes good sense. So yeah, and that's kind of what and maybe somewhere along the lines, while over the course of the winter and meetings and stuff, we start developing some of that the framework language for the disposition too, just to start developing the thought process behind our disposal, and so at least getting all these options that we talk about out there, so that they are certainly not forgotten when the time comes and we get to disposal. We're not starting from ground zero, then almost like a sister piece to this.
Copy that.
Okay, all right. Any other final comments or questions before we close out the work session?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting project that we're going to endeavor. I like what our city manager said about possibly working with the lease situation. One thing Seldovia needs by far, and has needed after some years ago, and that is affordable housing for folks, people who come here and need a place to stay and live. So if we can actually work or be the facilitator of something where the city can be involved and have affordable housing built on our property with somebody being in charge of being the builder and the maintenance and everything, and we're just the facilitator and have the land available. I think that'd be fantastic for Seldovia. So I'm excited about this project and look forward to see where we're going to get going with it. But I thank the staff for the great job you did putting it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time tonight. Thank you, staff. This is a great start on the plan. Yeah, lots of work completed and lots of work still to go. So, but definitely a good start. So, all right. It's about 5:48. We'll go ahead. This will give us time to adjourn here for about 15 minutes. Then we'll come back for the regular council meeting. So we'll go ahead and stand in adjournment.